Today we're going to talk about the Republican stall tactics when it comes to passing new gun legislation and what conservative readings of the Second Amendment actually say. And I interview former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner about the prospect of there finally being a criminal investigation of Trump at the DOJ, what would happen if Trump had given a pocket pardon to himself before he left office, and what the best case scenario for the January 6th committee will look like as we get into their highly anticipated hearings. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. So we're over a week out from the shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde, where 10 and 21 people, respectively, were shot and killed. Over a week out, and since Uvalde, there have been 20 more mass shootings in the U.S., where 91 people were shot and 19 of them died, just in the 10 days since Uvalde. So now the Senate is in bipartisan talks to see if it can find a law suitable enough for 10 Republicans to sign on to, which is underscored by the fact that every time a Republican is asked about the possibility of passing legislation, they get defensive and qualify that they're only interested in addressing the real problems here, which are obviously mental health issues and doors into schools. Because the U.S. very clearly is the only country in the world with mental health issues and numerous entrances into buildings. That's apparently how every other country has managed to avoid these mass shootings. Now, Cornyn is the Republican tapped by Mitch McConnell to represent the GOP in these talks. But every public indication that we get from him is less than promising. The guy is supposed to be working toward a solution to gun violence, and yet took to Twitter when someone tweeted about Second Amendment restrictions and wrote, quote, "not gonna happen." And that's the best we've got. That's the guy who'd even come to the table. And I just want to touch upon this idea for a moment that any restrictions on guns are a violation of the Second Amendment. Just so we're clear, the Second Amendment is not unlimited. It's not carte blanche to own any and all weapons. When Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia was alive, probably the most conservative justice on the bench at that time, he said, quote, "Like most rights, the Second Amendment right is not unlimited. It is not a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever in any manner whatsoever and for whatever purpose." He goes on to say that any pro-Second Amendment decisions passed by the judiciary, quote, "should not be taken to cast doubt on long-standing prohibitions on the possessions of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or laws forbidding the carrying of firearms in sensitive places such as schools and government buildings, or laws imposing conditions and qualifications on the commercial sale of arms," which is reasonable. And that was the far right wing of the court. And yet when you contrast that with today, you'd be hard-pressed to find a single Republican even willing to do background checks, even willing to stop the sale of firearms to the mentally ill. What are we doing? Who does it benefit to bury our heads in the sand on background checks? The only person who shouldn't want to make gun sales dependent on passing a background check is someone who wants a gun and wouldn't pass a background check. That's it. The rest of us, all of us, should have a collective vested interest in making sure the people who are handed semi-automatic weapons and unlimited ammo if they want it aren't the kinds of people who would use those weapons to indiscriminately kill a bunch of people. Which is why, by the way, most of these common sense gun laws are popular. According to the latest Pew polling from last year, April 2021, so before a bunch of 8 and 9-year-olds were killed in their classroom, 87% of Americans supported mental health restrictions, 81% supported background checks, 79% opposed permitless carry, 77% support red flag laws, 2/3 of Americans support bans on high-capacity magazines, and a new assault weapons ban. Americans are mostly on board with all of this. It's the Republican conference where there is zero support. That's the issue. Yet again, you've got these Republicans in Congress who aren't even pretending to advocate for even a fraction of what their own constituents want because, cashing in those gun lobby checks is just too important. Not getting in the bad graces of Tucker Carlson on Fox News is just too important. So God forbid they have a shred of integrity, of courage. God forbid they see a child die and think, hey, maybe we shouldn't have that anymore. Maybe we lift even a finger to at least try to stop that from happening. The fact is that we have a really small window where some action can be taken, because the reality of politics is that if you don't take advantage when it's top of mind for the country, people forget. That's just how it is. And I know I might sound like I'm being hacky by saying that we're missing a political opportunity by waiting, but gun violence is political. You can't divorce them. And in fact, waiting for the political pressure to subside so that Republicans can once again go back to doing nothing is political too. So any way you cut it, this is a political issue. It is inherently political. So given that it's going to be political anyway, the question becomes, do you want to use that pressure to save some lives, or do you want to wait for the pressure to subside so that you don't ultimately have to do anything? If that makes me a partisan hack to want to use this moment and strike while the iron's hot to make some changes that mean we don't have to bury kids anymore, guilty as charged. I will take that designation any day of the week. So I know that Republicans are trying to claim that they need more time to hammer out a deal. And you know what? If it happens, I will gladly eat my words. Gladly. But otherwise, here's what you get with more time. It's not good faith efforts by Republicans to address this issue. It's people like J.D. Vance who are trying to draw a link between pornography and shootings. He said that porn is leading to a decline in families and then called the absence of family values one of the causes for these shootings. And of course, Ted Cruz is still on his door kick, a point that seems only mildly more adoptable by the GOP. You'll hear Republicans touting door control now on a nightly basis on Fox if they're forced to offer some tepid solution. So no, more time isn't equating to a better faith effort. We're still getting the same bullshit distractions, knowing full well that the more they can dawdle, the less political pressure they'll have to face, because that's how the news works these days. And of course, when it happens again in one day or 1 week or 1 month, they'll act surprised and claim that they couldn't possibly have seen this coming, but offer their most fervent thoughts and prayers. Same cycle every single time. So look, I hope something gets done. I don't think it will, but I'm still holding out hope. I know that Senator Murphy is working to make sure that something passes, but I think the bigger issue, beyond holding out hope for whatever watered-down legislation Republicans will find palatable, meager enough for them to sign on to, is recognizing that while Republicans have a say on this issue, nothing of substance will change. And so until we can expand our Senate majority by 2 more seats and get enough votes to eliminate the filibuster so that we can get something through the graveyard that is the Senate, we will keep going in circles and pretending that somehow doors are a bigger issue than guns. I'm tired of it. I know you're tired of it. I can guarantee that plenty of Republicans are tired of it too. So I know that we're supposed to surrender our thinking to all those very serious pundits out there who say the Democrats are doomed in midterms, but I refuse to believe that the only fucking issue that people are willing to vote on in November is gas prices. When we have kids who can't even go to school safely, and we have women who no longer have any say over their own reproductive health. I refuse to believe that we are so collectively short-sighted and shallow as a country that people will give more power to the party that's currently rolling back abortion rights and blocking any moderate shred of progress on guns in the face of these daily rampages. This isn't politics as usual. This is life or death. And I have to believe that people will recognize that and make their voices heard in November. To listen to my interview with Glenn Kirshner, where we talk about the prospect of there finally being a criminal investigation of Trump at the DOJ, what would happen if Trump had given himself a pocket pardon before he left office, and what the best case scenario for the January 6th committee will look like as we get into their highly anticipated hearings, click the thumbnail right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel.